Welcome again, another episode of Growth Perspective. Today I have Derrick Calvert with us from 52. Welcome, Derrick. How you doing today, man?
Oh, I'm doing well. I can't complain. Nice crisp weather, so
Yeah.
everything's going well. What about for you?
Can't complain. Right here in Cali, finally getting some decent weather ourselves for this time of year. But yeah, let's just jump right in, man. Let's just have you go ahead and introduce yourself, your company. Actually, start off with kind of your background and kind of what brought you to the position you're in today, then, man.
Yeah, yeah. So I appreciate you having me again. So again, I mean, you introduced me. I'm Derrick Calvert. Um, you know, my company Empower 52. You know, um, we help schools identify systems that have pressures there, right? And so for the last 20 years, I've spent my time inside of schools, inside of classrooms, inside of campuses, at the district level. And over that time, I've learned just one of the biggest hidden truths, right? Um, I don't look at behavior from an individual level, but we understand that behaviors don't start with kids. They start behavior issues start when there are pressures on the system. And so I've spent years just watching teachers and students and principals and administrators get blamed for outcomes that were actually created by pressures in the system and the way that those systems were designed. And so when those invisible pressures happen, um, and inevitably people take responsibility for it, and that's the biggest thing that drives my work. It's just making sure that those systems and those invisible pressures are visible, so that we can understand where those pressures are, identify them, and then start to fix them.
Right. And I'm excited to delve into that because that's some deep stuff, right? So give us your background, your education, and kind of your path and getting to your position today and what you've been able to kind of share with these schools and your perspective.
Yeah, yeah. Again, almost 20 years in education myself. My bachelor's is in English literature. My first master's is in English lit with an emphasis in British literature. My second master's is in educational leadership, and then my third master's is in psychology with an emphasis in cognition and behavior. Those are the things. Again, I've been in this field almost 20 years, and what really drives me is understanding why we behave the way we do,
Right.
why we're seeing some of the behaviors, and what we can do to again anticipate some of those, and be proactive there. And
Okay.
so it's the work that I love to do, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and then I think you focus mainly in the K through 12.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you in the public school area or you also go private as well? Like how does that work?
I've mostly worked in public schools, publics and charters. I
Hmm.
have not gone over to the private sector yet, but hopefully, or maybe soon we'll get there and start to do some work
Okay.
there.
So
But
it could be an
yeah,
avenue as well. Is there a big
yeah,
market there also or is a smaller one? I guess it's a smaller one, right?
it's a smaller market. It's a smaller market.
Yeah.
Private schools are mostly regulated by tuition, and so
Yes.
they aren't privy to those state mandates, so they don't have to really follow those.
Right.
And again, they're great schools, right? But
Yes.
the things that they have to do are different than public schools.
Correct. And I think that, and for you, I think the need for you is more in the public side anyway, just because there's just so many more people.
Absolutely.
Um, so tell me, man, so 20 years, I've always been fascinated by the evolution of the student. Like what was going on 20 years ago that now is different or not going on, whatever your perspective is now that needs so much more attention, do you think?
Yeah. Really, what's going on now that has not been going on or did not go on 20 years ago is our understanding of people, of students, of student dynamics. 20 years ago, if you had ADHD, they would say, "Hey, this kid has a behavior problem," and the understanding of why those particular behaviors existed, it wasn't a priority, right? And so now, 20 years later. while those things are more of a priority, if I have a student with ADHD or that's dyslexic or that's exhibiting issue behavior, they have a bunch of behavior infraction or exhibiting any sort of behavior. Now, where the things where the things are going is now I'm looking more at, okay, let's get them in to see the school counselor. Let's identify why these behaviors exist. When in the past it's been you're making bad choices or you have bad behavior, so you have to get out of here. We suspend you and we get you out of here. Some of those
Right.
things are still happening, but now
Right.
there's a lot more empathy in terms of how we interact with students and how we deal with student behavior.
Okay. And I mean, in the past, I guess they weren't, there were special needs and they were just known as a bad kid, and then they're just not even given the attention they may have needed. Um, so is there more programs now than ever before? Because also there's a budget issue too, right? So what's kind of the game that has to be played here to help these folks?
Yeah, yeah. So that I mean, again, there are a few more programs, right? And I mean, you hit it right on the head. There is a huge budget issue, especially since after COVID, the budget has been cut drastically. And so the additional help that students need may not come as easily. What helps a lot is a lot of these things are state mandated, right? If a student has a 504 or an IEP and that, that's if a student has a learning disability or some neurodivergent tendencies, state mandate and federal mandate say, these students have to have those particular those structures, right, to help them. In the past, again, those things may have existed, but it wasn't as stringent as it is now. And so what we're really trying to do is just making sure that we understand and we gain more understanding as we continue to grow that there's always a reason behind student behavior, whether it's neurodivergence, whether it's a break in the system, whether it's, the student just needs some extra love, whatever the case may be, there is a reason. And it typically is not the kid.
Okay.
Yeah.
And from your experience, you noticed that. So
Yeah.
for you and your company, is it case by case basis? Like, how do you end up in the school? Like, how does that whole process work?
Yeah. So a lot of things we do, some of it's by word of mouth, some of it's by RFP. We will apply for, if a school is struggling with a specific thing. And so we'll answer the call and say, hey, you know what, I see that you're having some issues with some systems. Also, we have access to a lot of the state reporting, and we see school report cards. And so we're able to go in and say, hey, I'm going to build a proposal. This is what I can do for you. I see that you may have some chronic absenteeism. I see that you may be suspending and expelling kids at a higher rate or a disproportional rate. Right? And so as a practitioner, I can see those things and I can say, let me build a proposal for you. Let me show you what we can do and the possible outcomes there. And then that way, if you want us to come in, we come in and help. We do evaluations and observations, and we start to fix things from within.
Wow. And so how many of you is there within your company then at this point?
So right now, within my company, there are three of us,
Uh-huh.
and so the bulk of the consulting is typically me,
Hmm.
and so I have a couple other team members who do some marketing, who may do the invoices, and so we're a super small team, but
Hmm.
we get it done. We get it done.
Okay. Okay. And so how do you market? Do you market on social media? Do you market on LinkedIn, or where kind of your resources come up when you come into marketing and such?
Yeah. So some of it is LinkedIn, some of it is social media. A lot of it is by word of mouth, right?
Hmm.
Education is a place where you build relationships, and
Hmm.
a lot of your business will come from relationships. And I'll tell you why, because we're in the business of people, right? And especially
Hmm.
because we're dealing with kids, right? And so you never want somebody in your building that you don't feel like you can trust, you don't feel like, will do the right things. And so it's, hey, Empower came in and they helped us do this, and they tell another district, and we're able to get in touch with those people, and we just build relationships, which is again the crux of the business.
I understand. So when you talked about like the structure, right?
Mhm.
Explain to me what do you mean where there's like a structural issue that you may have to go in and try to solve that problem? Like what are some common structure problems that you have to kind of deal with right now?
Yeah, some of the most common structural problems, and I'll say this. systems speak before people speak, right? And particularly, especially when we're working with schools, what we'll see an influx, and especially after COVID, this was huge. There were a lot of more, there were a lot more discipline infractions. There were a lot more kids getting suspended, and that's because things had changed. And so while the kids weren't saying, "Hey, I'm struggling. I need this," while the teachers didn't really understand what was happening, we saw the systems and how they were breaking, and those systems started to speak to us while while the people were actually silent. And so some of the things, again, it may be you have an issue with, again, like I said, students being suspended, right? And so we go in and we start to ask questions. Is it, what are the most common places that, you're seeing behavior infractions? What is the most common behavior infraction? Are you seeing them in a particular grade level? Are you seeing them in a particular part of the day? And we really start to dissect the system that is running within the school to identify the real issue. So before we actually start to work with student behavior, we have to work with the system first. And that's where we start. We start system first, adults, and then we work our way down to students.
Okay. Um, and again, so what would be a reason for um, heavy suspension or absenteeism or whatever? Like, what are some of these kind of root causes of kind of what's making that happen?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Some of the things that may make that happen is, teacher capacity, right?
Sure.
Um, we know that teachers are massively underpaid and overworked. And so when you get to a month like October where there may not be any breaks and it's the end of the month, like naturally as humans, our fuse is just a little bit shorter, right? So that teacher capacity, that really misunderstanding where students come from, their own personal culture, their culture as a whole, and then the other thing we see is the school culture and how those systems are run in the school. There are misunderstandings on the adult side, and so because as an adult I misunderstand, that when a kid doesn't do his homework, I don't send him to the principal's office. I say, hey, let me try to help you figure out X, Y, and Z so we can get it done next time.
Right.
But if I don't understand it, I jump right to the most punitive thing and I send them.
Sure.
And so, Derrick has been in the office 15 times for not doing homework. All right, so
Right.
what am I supposed to do? I have to send him to ISS because he's not doing his homework, as opposed to the system is, let me call home, let me talk to mom, let me talk to dad, let me really figure out what's happening so we can help this baby get everything that they need so they can be more successful. So those are the
Hmm.
three primary reasons we see
Right.
where suspensions may climb.
Sure. And obviously, like you said, right, I think sometimes the bandwidth for some of these teachers is full. There's not too much room they have to be able to put extra where it's needed, right?
Yeah.
So how can you solve that as a company going and say, hey, this area needs more attention or you need to hire more people? You can't just say hire more people because they got budgets and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The solve is really nuanced, right? And so again, like I said, the first thing we look at is we look at those systems, and we see where there are pressures, where there are gaps, where there are misunderstandings. And once we can identify where those pressures and those gaps are and those misunderstandings, then we can start to breathe clarity, right, into those systems, into the people. Clarity beats complexity every single time. Oftentimes, the systems are just so complex, or the things that we go through in the schools, right? They're just so complex that it's confusing, um, for anybody, for kids, for adults. And so we start there. I want to always say that in terms of fixing it, right? And I tell people all the time, we don't fix students, right? We show them how to exhibit different behaviors.
Hmm.
Because if we lead with I'm coming in and I'm gonna fix this student, then we're saying that as a student, you're defective. And even when we go into schools, we don't say, I'm coming in to fix your school. We're saying, I'm coming in to help you identify those complex things to make them clearer so that we can identify those desirable behaviors. So it's never a fix, it's I'm calling your attention to X, Y, and Z so that we can change behavior to get those outcomes that you're really looking for.
That's cool. Got it, man. And so in this type of work, you know, within even your state or is there a lot of competition or a lot of need? Like what's kind of what's the trend, what's going on in that realm?
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of the competition is they're software companies, right? That are built by individuals who really understand numbers. Um, and you can understand numbers and not understand people. And those are two different things, as I know you know. And so when you understand the numbers, you can say, input your data into this particular place, and we're going to give you the numbers. Now, as a former principal or a district administrator, I'm looking at the numbers and I'm saying, okay, I know that in this school in seventh grade, there have been a lot of fights. In this school in second grade, there's been a lot of students who were absent or suspended. And so the numbers only tell part of the story. What we do here at Empower 52 is we actually help you decipher through that and say, okay, there are a lot of fights in seventh grade. Let's actually figure out why. Let's talk to students. Let's talk to parents. Let's really understand what is really happening. Because, like I said, 9 times out of 10, it is not the student behavior. It's not the behavior is typically not the student issue. It's a system issue, right? And so those fights might look like they're fights in seventh grade because there's not enough coverage in the cafeteria. Or during dismissal, we have teachers who are in parent-teacher conferences and didn't tell another, administrator like, "Hey, I'm not going to be here." And there are gaps in terms of, where adults should be. And so, if you only look at the numbers, aren't the things you see, those aren't the stories that you hear. There's a problem here. You know, this must be a problem school, or this must be a problem student.
Right, right. And,
Yeah,
and all industries, the metrics
yeah,
tell a different story than the reality sometimes, right?
yeah,
So I've seen it, everyone's seen they have their point of view in all the industries. I understand what you're saying.
yeah.
So obviously, so the software companies trying to trying to like compete with what you may offer. Um, is that where you see the future going, or where do you think? Do you see there's a good market for what you have to offer and a budget for what you have to offer going forward? Like, what is it looking like?
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you brought that up. Our company is building out, and it's still in developmental, in the beta stage. We're building out something that helps tell the story of the numbers, right? It helps identify the pressures in the system and say, this is the future if these things are not fixed. And so I'll be a little more descriptive. As an example, you know, eighth grade, there have been 15 removals on Tuesday of students in class. And, while we see the numbers and say, oh, that's a lot of kids in eighth grade, um, our software will help actually bring all of your data points together and say, hey, I see the 15 removals. I see that these kids were put in ISS or OSS, or these kids were expelled. And then it tells the story. And then it lets us know, if we don't fix this particular issue, then it will impact our attendance. It'll impact our state test scores.
Hmm.
It will impact how students learn. It impacts our instructional minutes. This is how many, it literally tells you how many instructional minutes you lost for kids being removed from class. And so a lot of the things don't do that as of yet. And so again, it tells that bigger story, and it helps us be proactive and say, you know what? I see what's happening, and these are the things we need to do to fix it.
Right. So using
Yeah.
your expertise along with some software to really give a better product is what you're
Yeah,
going for, right? I love it. I
absolutely.
love it, man. I love it. Do you have a time frame on that, or are you just still in the beginning stages, or any kind of word, or just that's kind of hush hush right now? We'll just see how that goes.
It's a little bit of both, but I'll give you a little bit of the insight. We're in the pilot phase,
Right.
where we have a couple of people testing it to just identify
Wow.
what was looking good. What would you absolutely need? What needs to change? And we're getting some really, really good feedback
Yeah.
in a lot of places. And so, the goal is, in the next 4 months to have it out and be like, hey, this is what you need. All of your
Mhm.
data. It's an agnostic tool, right? So
Yes.
whatever platform you use, you can put
Yes.
you can put your data in a spreadsheet, give it to us, and we will give you the actual story. We'll
Right.
give you the pressures in the system and say,
Right.
this is where the pressure is. Let's address this before it gets any worse.
Perfect. And so you got a lot more meat to it than maybe other companies maybe would offer, which is fantastic for
Yeah,
these people that are people, right? So that's
yeah.
important for them. So your goals when it comes to this industry, is it to take this and expand it and grow your business that way?
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. And I was having this discussion the other day with one of my partners. This is the work that I'm passionate about, right?
Yes.
And I love it. I love it so much, and I want to make sure that it's right, that it serves the purpose that it needs to serve, and that people who need it can actually have access to it and utilize it, right? Um, and like I said, it tells the story, and our
Mhm.
goal is to continue to tell that story because, like I said, systems speak before people do. And
Right.
if we can beat the system to speaking, because
Right.
systems will silence people, and I think we know that, and we see that in our political environment and just our
Mhm.
environment in general. When a system breaks and people are silent, then people suffer. Our
Right.
goal is to help mitigate that and take a lot of that
Right.
out to say, hey, I see what's happening. Let's fix this because before it becomes an inequity.
Right. And I think you'd be a perfect person to kind of show the people because you're coming at it not at the number's sake, but as a person trying to fix or help with the issues that happen to the school at the personal level, right? So I
Yeah,
love
absolutely.
that could be very powerful, man. And I think eventually it'd be a cost-effective path for a lot of these schools to take because they're all looking at budgets and stuff, right? So if they can kind of have something to really give them some insight that much sooner, that is fantastic.
Yeah,
Perfect.
absolutely.
That's awesome. Okay. Um, so 6 to 12 months from now, like give me an idea of kind of what you want your company to look like, or what's kind of bit what you where you want to see yourself that's going to make you feel like all this work is kind of paying off to where you want to go.
Yeah, 6 to 12 months. We're hoping to um, be in more schools, right? We're hoping to be
Mm.
at we will be at a beta stage, and we'll be distributing the platform through different schools, and we'll be, developing and upgrading as we need, identifying, even in our system where the pressures are,
Hmm.
to, just to again make sure that we are doing exactly what
Right.
we preach.
Making improvements, know exactly, like getting the feedback and
Yeah,
making those tweaks, right? I understand.
absolutely, absolutely. And so with that, again, that again is where my expertise comes in.
Hmm.
Is helping tell that story. Is helping identify those pressures and those spots where things could escalate, more than they should. And so my favorite thing is to talk to principals and superintendents and teachers as well, and say, hey, this is the story. Let's figure out how we can change the narrative so that your teachers, your principals, your students can feel successful. And in the next 6 to 12 months, that's our goal, is to scale
Beautiful.
even more than what we have. And again, it helps. It Our goal is always to help. And yeah,
That's beautiful, man. I love it. We're kind of getting closer to the end, man, but this has been awesome. It's an awesome direction. I love how it's going. I want to just give you the floor, man, because I got a feel for what you're about, where you're trying to go. But anything that you want to kind of, say to the public and they get a chance to watch this, podcast and kind of your message, man. What do you have to say?
yeah. Like I said at the beginning, I've spent almost 20 years inside of schools. And that experience just has shown me that behaviors typically aren't the problem. It's holes and gaps in the system. And so as we start to look at behavior, as we start to look at how to change behavior, um, we want to be as judgment free as possible. We want to make it as psychologically safe for principals, teachers, students, administrators to come in and be their full selves. The world is changing. And so we at Empower 52 want to be on the forefront of that. And we want to make sure that we're doing our part to make the world a better place so that people can be their full selves, and, get the outcomes out of life
Hmm.
that they desire.
At least get the most out of their education, right?
Absolutely.
Be their best selves and know they're in a good environment that's looking for their best interest and all that good stuff too, right?
Absolutely.
Uh, I love it. I love it. So, yeah, I just want to go ahead and thank you for this time. And yeah, man, anything else, or you feel pretty good about how this one went?
Yeah. No, I think this went really well.
Perfect, man.
I appreciate it. I appreciate the flexibility. So this was
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. Perfect, man. Great. Well, we're gonna go ahead and sign off.
Thank you again. I appreciate
Hey,
it.
man. It was a pleasure, man. You did great. I loved it. All right. You have a
Yeah,
great rest of your day, Derek. All
you
right.
too.
Take care, man.
All right.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.